How's it going, guys? Ronin Man. Today I want to talk about India and the rise of India as a great power and kind of what's going on, and also what I see as clouds or possible things that could derail this, things that could be good for the world and good for India, and things that would eventually fail and not work out. There's India is very different. A lot of people tend to think of the rise of China and they say, well, what's the next China? And they probably did this before with Japan. They probably said, well, what's the next Japan, right? What's the next Germany, right? What's the next? And then people try to think of the next, but what's the next Facebook? There is no next Facebook. What's the next Google? There is no next Google. Google's, Facebook's Facebook, and there will be new exciting things, right? But they're not going to be the next of whatever. So you have to look at life. You have to know something, actually. Here's the problem. Everybody on TV, they're just saying they don't know anything. So they're just saying, oh, the next, whatever, It's because they don't fucking know the difference between things, right? So I want to get into it deep. I know a bit about India. I spent about a half year there. And I'm here with Dave. We're just making some breakfast. This is looking pretty good, actually, that oatmeal. We got a ton of vegetables here. I might have overcooked these pumpkins, but anyway. So India is first I want to contrast India and China, because I think that's also instructive. Sometimes you contrast and sometimes you show the difference, right? I want to say that the similarities and differences, right? India and China obviously have a lot of similarities. Similar population size, similar even geography size, right? The countries are very large. India has huge advantages as far as ocean, because the whole country has ocean all along the edge. It's just like amazing. Like if you were to design a country to have the perfect geography, India is not bad. I mean, it is right up there. When you talk about defense, navy, difficulty of invading, because you got the Himalayan mountains above, which basically stops tanks from coming in, trucks, tanks, very difficult to get over those mountains. And then you have the ocean, right? Then you need a lot of boats. Right? So India is a very stable, solid kind of, I'm a very big fan of India. So I know there's a lot of Ronin Man Indian fans. So I really want to get your take on this. And this is no way of saying that I'm like an expert, but I do have a lot of insight that I want to add in. And I would really like to get somebody from India on the next, or one of the future ones, where we can go deeper into these things, because it's very interesting. And my basic thing is, I think it's India's time. That's the basic underlying thing. It's India's fucking time. India's coming, and most people don't really realize it. I'll just kind of say things why I think so. So I was there in 1999 and 2000. And so India was a different country then, mainly where I was, you couldn't do things I had girlfriends come to visit me, right? So they'd come and stay for 2 weeks. I was there for that time 4 months, and I was riding a motorcycle all over India and surfing. I had my surfboard on the motorcycle, and I was just kind of surfing down the coast, mainly in the south of India, most of my time. And then up near Pakistan, up along the desert, I was up there quite a bit, and I was in Goa. But at that time, believe it or not, you could not hold a girl's hand. So, I had a girl come.
It's still like that.
It's still like that in many places, right? India is, in some ways, it's pretty as far as
it's okay for guys to hold hands.
Right. Guys hold hands in India.
Right.
They're friends. They hold hands. And it looks strange to Westerners, but they just do it. They walk along and hold hands. It's the way it is. There's nothing sexual about it. But to hold a girl's hand is a big deal. In fact, I had this Japanese girlfriend she was with me, and we were holding hands in the taxi below, because we knew, obviously, below the line of sight, below the seat, you couldn't even see our hands, right? Some guy came with a motorcycle and pointed down, stopped and looked at our hands, and he goes, "No holding hands," he yelled in the window. And another time we were on top of a mountain, I shouldn't say a mountain, it was like a tall hill, next to a city in the desert, and we were on top of the thing, and we were kissing, right? Because there's a sunset. It was beautiful. And so, believe it or not, I don't know how this guy had such a strong voice. He yelled from the city below, and he goes, "No kissing!" He yelled that, right? And that was the way it was. I mean, India has some very different ideas about dating, romantic relationships, affection, the roles of men and women. It's very different. And I got to say that a lot of men, the reason why a lot of guys are on this channel, Indian guys, is because a lot of Indian guys feel they are getting screwed by the changes. You know, they don't like the old way either, but they don't like the new way. And they feel like they're getting passed by. They're getting ripped off. A lot of Indian guys feel that way. And that is a totally worthwhile topic to dig into. But I would rather do that with somebody who's there now. So if anybody wants to join in on that, I can't guarantee I'll post it because I always want to only post my best episodes. Like I make a lot of episodes that I don't post because I want stuff to be where you look at it and you say, Ronin Man made it. It might start strange, but it's worth my time to listen to. I want everything that I make to be like that, where it's like, I'm not ripping you off. It's worth your time to listen. So India has some strange ideas. India is not a simple place. Like it's not a simple like replacement. Like you're playing Monopoly and there's one hotel and another hotel. India is not like that. It's not another hotel to replace the Chinese hotel. That's not what's going on. And China still has a huge role in the world. So in some ways, you'd have to say India is usurping China's rise, or it's taking over that role as a up-and-comer. And with an up-and-comer, just like in the NBA or whatever, you know, someone like Jamal's out there killing it as a rookie, and everybody gets super excited about it because we just like newcomers. We like people that just come into the thing. They're brand new. They come out of nowhere. You don't know what they're going to do next. You know, they're kind of surprising. They're kind of exciting to watch. That's the way India is right now. And China used to be like that. But now with what's going on right now politically, you definitely don't feel that. Like, people feel like, okay, I know China, and China's like this, right? And people have a kind of a set, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the end of his career. People knew, what he was going to do. He's going to do the skyhook, right? He's going to do certain things. You know what he's going to do. You know he's good at it, but it doesn't surprise you. It doesn't. You're not thinking like, I'm going to bet on the future on Kareem, right? Because he's only got so much left, right? And China right now has an aging population because of the very mistaken one-child policy. And it's aging as fast as Japan or faster. And in another 20 years, China will look like nothing like it does today. Population is dropping. The one-child policy just killed big families. China used to always be big families, and that's gone. And also, it also killed, obviously, because Asian families in the old days would tend to want a boy to pass the name on to. It also totally screwed up the dating situation. So, even if they have a population that's decent size, two guys are not going to make kids, right? So it just doesn't happen. So there's a lot of things that China has against it right now too, right? So let's just say China aside, and again, China it's a manufacturing powerhouse still. They have a very highly skilled workforce. A lot of people don't realize, I'll just say something positive about China. They don't realize how much innovation is coming out of China and creativity. China is very fast moving. China's speed is a thing. If you've ever done business in China, it's a real thing. China's speed is real, and it's amazing. It's scary actually when you're competing against China's speed because they just adapt so fast. It's the Chinese way. Maybe because the competition of all the people or whatever it is. But anyway, China's got its pluses, right? And also it's got an authoritarian government that can make decisions. So it can say, look, we're putting in a subway. We're going to buy these people off, move them out of the way. We're putting in a freeway. We're going to make a nuclear power plant. China can do that. And sometimes that's good. That can have very good effects. We're going to turn this old industrial town into a tourist town, right? We're going to make a nice waterfront like, Sydney, and we're going to, they can just do that. China just does that. And that has good and bad. But it does have good, right? Sometimes it's great. When you need power, when you need internet, cables, when you need new roads, wider roads, China is your go-to. Like America and India, they're like democratic. Everything moves so fucking slow. It's absolutely crucifying and painful to even widen a fucking road, like something that simple, right? It's just ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous. The best example I have is Seattle. I know somebody who lives up there next to the lake on the Lake Washington, I think it's called. Anyway, where Bill Gates lives, and there was a 1-lane bridge that went there, and the locals they fought against doubling the size of the bridge, and so that Bill Gates and all the motherfuckers that were super rich there couldn't even get into Seattle without huge traffic. So everybody bought 2 cars and a kayak. That's what they do. They drive one car, they park it, they take a kayak across this little river, and then they go to their other car because that's the only way to get into Seattle at a reasonable speed. And so like that democracies have these kind of problems. Like that's totally stupid to me. Having lived in China, I'm like, what the fuck? Like just tell the people to move and make the thing double. Like do it for the society, right? But democracies, they're just not like that. They just don't do it. They're like, doesn't matter if Bill Gates lives there. We're not going to do it. I don't want to move from my house. There's eminent domain and stuff, but they're not used very often and people don't like them, right? Whereas for me, I always like the greater good, So in that sense, I'm pro city planning. I'm pro changes that make society better, for everybody, right? So I like these kind of big projects too, going to the moon, things like that, making the internet. These things were big projects that and they were like, a lot of people were against them for a lot of reasons, but they turned out being good, right? So I like that. Cell phones and all that stuff is good stuff. All came out of these big projects that were forced upon people, kind of, or snuck in somehow, right? But anyway, so what does India have? India is very, what do you call it? Bad in the bad way. It's got a lot of red tape. It's Britain. It's British legal system.
It's worse than that.
It's worse, right? Yeah. It's like the Indians, they don't even think twice about waiting in line 100 hours to do something, to get a stamp on something, or just to do some ridiculously stupid thing that should be done on an app or something, right? What were you going to say?
And no reason to think that's going to change. That's the problem, because that's where it's like bribery. It's like you can't even really call it bribery. It's sort of like their structural taxation is the local official getting a bribe. So it's like it's very, trying to get anything done, especially a foreign company or getting in there. It's like a labyrinth, and everybody's got to get paid off. And it's very difficult the difference with China, the thing is that it does have a legal system. It's just very, very inefficient and corrupt. But the corruption in India is more like bottom up, whereas the corruption in China is like top down. Right?
China's more complex. No, China is more complex than that. But about India, I really respect because Dave actually worked there and ran some big things there, and you ran into a lot of stuff. So yeah. I really, really appreciate you bringing that in, because not many people listening had a big job in India, and actually had responsibility with hundreds of people working for you, and actually got stuff done in India. So what Dave is saying is not just, we're not making this just to blow wind here. Like that is a key thing in India. And when I was driving there, I had to pay some bribes to people who would pull me over for no reason. Had to give the guy a little bit of money called bakshish, right? Little bakshish action here and there, just for nothing, right? You didn't do anything wrong. You're just like driving or whatever, and you got to give some bakshish to some guy.
It's like a tax,
right? One time a cop pulled me over, and he was totally drunk. Like he could hardly stand up. He was just absolutely reeking of booze. And he was barely standing there. And he actually he didn't pull me over. He actually stopped me because he was so drunk he couldn't drive. He stood in front of me and stopped my bike. And then he made me pay some money. And then I went by him. It was a road toll. It was a impromptu road toll. But so India's got its problems. It's another problem that Dave just said was earlier. What was he saying about the nationalism, because I know there is a Hindu nationalist situation that is, a lot of people don't know, but it's simmering and it's serious. What is your take on that kind of, speaking of the weaknesses of India as a rising power, as a possible world power, and things that essentially what we're talking about here is things that we hope are changed. Like, we want India to rise. We want China to rise. We want these other countries to pull their weight and to add to the world value of the economy. It all brings up the monetary, what's it called? The money, what's that called? The money, the amount of total money in the world. It's the money, there's a word for, I can't think of the word right now.
GDP?
No, there's like a word for the money, the amount of dollars in the whole.
Wealth?
No, there's like a certain, anyway.
Broad money?
I can't think of it. It might be, yeah. Anyway, it's not that. But anyway, it's as other countries rise, everybody gets richer. Okay, so like, for example, if you build a new house right here, say you put an expensive house in this neighborhood, your house value will rise, commiserate with what you invested. Right. But the houses that are next to you and across the street will also rise in value because you have a nice house now. So when you put money into the economy, when you put value in the economy, not only do you make money, but other people also get benefits. So, and then the neighborhood eventually gets a benefit. Sure.
You eat these?
Yeah. You go ahead and have one. It doesn't matter.
I already ate two.
Doesn't matter.
I want a third one.
Okay. But so what do you see with, as far as, and again, this is in the spirit of the world being better. You know, what do you see as a negative or a danger that maybe India has, a potential pitfall as far as nationalism? I know nationalism is more serious than most people realize in India.
Well,
it's tied to the religion too, somewhat.
Well, yeah, it's like religious it's Hindu nationalism. So it's like the suppression of, it's like suppression of Muslims. And I mean, I haven't been there in a while, but I just remember like it started changing like such that, like an Indian girl, like it's very bad to be with a foreigner, can't hold hands, no public kissing. Like going to bars, like alcohol is evil, eating beef is evil. No club, no dancing, singing. It's like they're turning into it's like the Hindu Taliban.
Oh, okay,
so it's
right,
like that.
right. I know sometimes when I was driving around, I love Indian food, right? It was one of my favorite things being in India was the food, and I'd be driving around and I'd want to have. Some kind of maybe like shark kebab or something, right? And so I needed a meat restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. Reshmi kebab or something, right? And so I needed a meat restaurant. And a lot of people don't know, but India is mostly vegetarian, right? It's most of India actually is vegetarian, if you include the whole country.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Especially in the South. I was in the South mainly. Well, and that's known as vegetarian.
Southern India is vegetarian.
Right.
But northern India is not.
I know. That's where all the meat is. But I think I saw it everywhere. If you live in the South and you see what vegetarian kind of is in India, you will see it in the North more than you think.
Okay.
It's like you just don't notice it because there is meat, right? But there's a lot of people who don't eat meat at all, even in the North. In places like there's a whole culture of it. Mm-hmm. And there's some really actually very cool restaurants that could actually do very well in the US or Japan or London that are like Indian, modern, fast, healthy, vegetarian, stand-up, just awesome places that I've wanted to take. I've actually wanted to either buy a franchise or copy a particular restaurant in Chennai and take it overseas, especially Tokyo would just kill it. It's got such a great vibe. But the thing is, if you do, so when I was looking for a meat restaurant, right, you have to look for what it says non-veg. There's a sign that says non-veg. Right. So think about that. I want to eat meat. I can't just drive into a restaurant. It has to say non-veg. And then when you go to a non-veg restaurant, what it feels like in the 1800s in America, you had two types of people. You had good people, God-fearing people, and you had the guy who had liquor delivered from New York. Okay, and everybody knew who he was. He was the bad guy because he drank liquor. That's the way the U.S. was too. And so if anybody got shipments of liquor from New York and in boxes, then everybody knew he was not one of the God-fearing people, right? They didn't trust him.
Hard to buy good liquor in India.
Right. Well, so
if you're a foreigner, like being sent to India, like most foreign will bring their own. You know, like that was the thing. Like when you get expatriated to India, like with a good company, like they'll give you like a wine allowance and pay for it. So like I was allowed to bring like 180 bottles of wine, paid for by the company because the wine there's shit.
Oh wow! Yeah. See, I wasn't drinking when I was in India, so I don't drink. So I was just watching this from the outside. But what I was going to say is, when I went to the non-veg places,
right.
A lot of them had a feeling of crime.
Oh, yeah.
They had a feeling of something. Yeah. It was something secret. It was like an old.
Well, that's
cloistered.
India, careful your shit, because it's a den of thieves.
Well, no, it wasn't that kind of crime. It was more like it was like this kind of feeling of. I shouldn't say crime. I was joking when I say crime. What I meant was we were doing something bad. Because you're doing something which Indian culture considers bad by eating meat, right? So it was kind of like all bets are off. So you could talk bad language, you could drink scotch, you see the guys like drinking, and you could sense when you went to the non-veg restaurants, especially in small towns, you could feel that these were the guys who didn't play by the rules that went to this restaurant. They were the guys who didn't care. They were not going to play by Indian regular rules. And they were like more boisterous. Even personalities seemed different to me, in the non-veg places, So what you have is you have a culture that not only doesn't eat meat, but there's a huge divide in people, like the meat eaters and the non-meat eaters. And, like that is a big deal in India. And also the drinkers and the non-drinkers.
Yeah,
right?
The Muslims and the Hindu.
The Muslims and the Hindus.
Yeah.
The people from Mumbai. And the Mumbai is a powerhouse in India. It's like,
yes.
It is a powerhouse. Most of the culture that you see on TV or dancing or whatever, it's always Mumbai. So be careful because Mumbai is not India. Mumbai is Mumbai. It controls Bollywood and all that, right? All the movies and things like that. But so what were you going to say? I wanted to get what is the nationalism thing? What do you see as a danger for India, or what experiences do you have? You were just saying before we started.
I've lost my train of thought.
Okay, yeah, you had it. It'll come back. So
I'm like a little bit at.
It's early morning.
I'm not quite.
He's about ready to give the dog an insulin shot. He's got the insulin ready. The dog's got to go through this every day. It's diabetes. How long has the dog had diabetes?
3 years.
3 years. This one thing I really I think it's so nice of you, the way you treat the dog so well. You give them the insulin every day, carry her out to pee. Oh, twice a day. You take her out to pee all the time. You're very, when we go hiking, he's like, we got to get back. The dog's got to go walking. It's like you treat that dog like gold. And I think that's really, really sweet. That was really kind. I like that. You got a soft spot for the dog. I got a soft spot for people who have soft spots for dogs, for animals. And so India, now let's talk about the powerhouse that India is. Okay, now here's the thing. India is very different than China. China has a great firewall, obviously, that you can't see a lot of websites in China. You can't look at Facebook. You can't look at Google. You can't use Twitter. You need a special software, which realistically people just don't use. They use the local version, the WeChat. They use the Alibaba at the shop. They use Tmall. They use WeChat, WeBank to pay for things. Because of the firewall, they have a different internet ecosystem. And that has pluses and minuses for China. The minuses, everybody always sees the pluses. You see billion-dollar companies. You see powerhouses like WeChat. And I like WeChat. I use WeChat. I love WeChat. But here's the negative. And I was talking to my friend Adam about this. The negative to this firewall and this other ecosystem is that, and I don't think most people really realize this because you don't think about China that much, but Chinese people, they don't, as a rule, really understand Facebook. They don't understand Facebook advertising very well. They don't understand Google advertising. And the reason why is because it's not part of their life. They have their own way of advertising. They do Baidu advertising. They do just different. It's totally different. And because of that, every business has a culture. Every tool, like if you're using Instagram for business, for example, it has its own culture. It's different than any other social media. It's different than any other way to promote something, right? You have to really understand. Your mother, who doesn't use Instagram, can't just get on Instagram and start running ads. She will have no clue about what people on Instagram want, right? And what looks cheesy and what looks good, right? You have to really, in order to succeed on an internet platform, you need to really understand it. You need to understand the people, why they're there, how they use it. And that happens naturally if you're a user. But if you're not a user, you don't know. And Chinese have been systematically excluded from using a lot of the standard international tools. So because of that, the good side is that they built their own massive tools. The negative side is when you start to talk about, selling overseas or understanding people overseas, there's a real gap that Chinese have where they don't understand, I guess, a lot of things like the political system in other countries. Like we for example, in America, we can say bad things about the president all day. And then you watch TV, it's like all day. China, you don't have that. So when Chinese people see Western criticism of their government, they don't understand that that's normal here. Like that's what we do. People are criticizing Trump even worse. Like they're just tearing him apart every day, right? And we consider that normal. When the Chinese see that, when the average mainland Chinese person sees that, they're offended. They're like, what? Like, how can that happen? Like, no one does that. No one says that, right? But overseas they do. And the reason why that's such a big misunderstanding is because they don't have the tools. And this is what gets to my point, is that India is different. Indian people speak English. And because of that, there's some massive differences. You look at one small thing that has a huge difference, it's the English language. Indians speak English natively, basically. And because of that, there's a lot. I'm seeing a lot of good content on YouTube from India these days. Obviously, I'm not saying every channel is good, but I found some really excellent content. Like I would say probably a third of the stuff I watch on YouTube is Indian channels because I found the channels I like. Both news, I talked about that before, but also political sites, technology reviews. A lot of good stuff coming out of India. There's a lot of very switched on, independent Indians who have a lot of experience because of the English language. Indians have been like, what's that called? Okay, say you're a digital nomad, or say you want to outsource something. You want to outsource your accounting. You want to outsource your legal representation, like just writing papers and like basic stuff, right? Or you want to outsource a database. You're going to outsource it to India in the old days. Now it's India and the Philippines, but you're going to outsource to India first. And because of that, there's a lot of Indian people who are very familiar with American business. The reason why is because they basically ran them. When you outsource these type of things, you're outsourcing a lot. You're outsourcing your secret sauce to some other person that you don't really know that well. And that's quite dangerous, actually. I'm not a big fan of that. Outsourcing. I like to do things in-house, and then maybe I'll have little things done for me, but I like to do things that I understand myself and I can actually do if I want to. I don't want to just give it to somebody else who can black box and control my business and has me by the balls, essentially. I like unblackmailable business where I can always handle my own business. I don't need anybody else. I can have somebody else help me, but I don't need them. And what a lot of small business owners do is they make the mistake of handing the golden keys to their IT guy, who he's the guy who understands how the new clients come in. He understands where they come from. He understands what they click on. He understands what they're looking for. He understands what they're not happy about. He understands what time of day they click. He understands how much they're willing to spend or how much they spend after that. He understands what other places they shop at. So the IT guy, quote unquote, IT guy, he actually knows the business often better than the entrepreneur does. And so what happens? Then he can make his own business, right? So that's why I don't want you to do that. That's why I don't think it's a good idea. But because so many people have outsourced their business to India for so long, that you have a bunch of very, very sharp entrepreneurs in India now. And they know what's going on. They know that they might be helping 10 companies, and then they choose one company that it's the best way to make money, and then they will make a company to compete with you, right? So it's quite dangerous. But anyway, on for India's benefit, obviously they've done a service and it's been valuable enough, people paid for it, right? So there was a win-win there at some level too. Obviously, business, that's what it's all about. You don't use it if it's not worth it. You don't buy tires that are not going to be that good. You're going to buy tires that are better. The best tire for the best price. You're going to buy that tire, right? Same with IT services or business solutions or whatever. So India has solved this problem for a lot of small companies, a lot of medium-sized companies. In fact, a lot of banks, right? A lot of big companies, hotels. They outsource their customer service. They outsource their call center. They outsource a lot of things to India. Because of that, because of the English language, this is what I want you to understand here, is you have to look at China as a totally different beast. There's not much outsourcing to China. The reason is because there's not a lot of people that are cheap, low salary, that speak English and understand. So because of that, you don't have that body of knowledge in China that you have in India. India, they understand what the fuck is going on. They know the way everybody treats any political leader. They know the way that they know what's going. Like if you ask the average Indian guy, he's quite international, man. It's pretty impressive actually how much he knows about stuff, about what's actually going on right fucking now, and that individually doesn't mean much, but for 1.4 billion people, it means a lot. You got a lot of smart people. You got a lot of hard workers. You got a competitive environment. You have a very international outlook. You have a very young country. There's a lot of kids. The average age is very young in India, and you have a great geography. They're just lucky as hell. They got the mountains. They got the desert. They got the ocean. They have the blue ocean like crazy, even better than America, better than Russia. India has a kind of a choice geographic location. They're just sweet. They got everything you want is in India. I drove all over India. I can tell you there's every type of geography that you could imagine they have there, right? And then they also have tropical islands out there, like near the Maldives and stuff. I forget the name of the islands that they have a lot of pretty places out there. And those pretty places aren't just pretty places. Those pretty places are the very thing that the Chinese military is the most afraid of, because the Indians have strategic islands that they are now militarizing in order to be ready if there was a World War III. And the Indians, they have the bandwidth, like they don't have to build artificial islands, India. They can just use a real island that they actually own legally.
Didn't they attack China recently?
There was a big thing in Ladakh. Up in Ladakh, there was a huge skirmish. Mm-hmm. I don't want to get into it because it's very controversial. And it seems to me, what I've read, is that the Chinese attacked first with sticks and clubs.
Oh, okay.
And the Indians responded. And the Chinese soldiers that were there were not as well trained. And the Indians that were there were basically the Gurkhas kind of people. They were like mountain guys. They were well trained. They were battle hardened. So we had a different. It wasn't like one soldier versus another soldier. It was more like special forces versus a new recruit. You had a different kind of person in that battle, and it was just hand to hand and sticks. And the what I've read is somewhere near 30 or maybe a little bit more of Chinese died, and 20 Indians died. So it was just a hand to hand, man to man. And then after that finished, India basically got tired of it, and they're starting to take land back that is disputed. So there's a lot going on in Ladakh. I don't want to take sides on that. But I think it's a flashpoint that is very important to know, is that there's an actual live kind of flashpoint between China and India right now. And the Indians are very fired up. They're very fired up. They sent, I think, 150,000 people up there for the winter. They got all ready. No matter what China does, they're ready for this winter. And I don't think China is as ready in Ladakh as India is. So whether that means anything is another question. But there's that is a very, 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 very interesting thing. And after that happened, what the Indian people saw as an intrusion on India, they started to really come down on China. And this is what led essentially to what I'm talking about now, because this is just like really recent news. That's why I'm bringing it up now. It's a good thing to know now, like right fucking now, today. If you know what I'm talking about, you're going to be up to date on what's going on, because the Ladakh thing only happened like a month or 2 months ago. And after that, that's when all the big changes happened, because the world realized that India might be getting its shit together finally, because India's always been seen as like, the El Dorado, the great place that could be, but it never was. And the Indians always like get depressed because India never takes advantage of the opportunities they have. But there's a lot of people thinking, and me included, that this time is going to be different, that India is actually grabbing the mantle. And it's India's leadership under the current Modi, under government. India sees the opportunity. They're not like blind to it. And so what they're doing is they're inking deals. So Apple or Foxconn moved 20% of their production is moving to India for iPhones. They're already making iPhones in India. Now they're moving 20% of their full production over there. It doesn't take a genius to see what's happening. Is it, India's rising as a kind of from nothing to like making like some of the more difficult stuff. And if anybody knows business, you got to know that's kind of scary.
I think
because they didn't go from plastic shitty toys to like a little bit less shitty toys to not quite as so shitty toys, which is what Japan did in the 60s and in the 50s, and what China did too. India went from like almost very little manufacturing, just basically service industry and finance, outsourcing, call centers, to like iPhones. That's a big jump. To me, that sets off alarm bells that India is actually, infrastructure is more ready than you thought. The government's more ready than you thought. The workers are more trained than you thought. And you got to wake up when you see these kind of red flags in a good sense, red flags of, China definitely sees this. They're not dumb. They know. China knows, like, holy shit, that's a big deal. And that affects China's ability to clamp down on iPhones too.
I think one thing I would look at is if India's really at a turning point. The nice thing about India is that it's relatively free compared to China. I mean, that's one of its main things. It's free for the most part, So what that means though is that it's somewhat easy for Indians to like vote with their feet and they'd leave, so like you run into a lot of smart Indians here, so like
Tokyo too.
Right. So they're everywhere except India. I mean, they're there, but they're more over here. So it's sort of like, when I was like working in a company, in like a Fortune 500 company, and there was like, like a expensive IT department, they were all Indians, So it's sort of like that's a bit of a problem, because it's sort of like if you're an Indian, like that's the fantasy for a smart Indian or talented Indian, is to get out of India and be here. So that's why we've got like awesome Indian doctors, awesome Indian IT people, and they'll tell you, like, it was Indians that told me, like, when like my company was like, we want you to go to India, it was Indians that told me, oh no, don't go there, it's a shithole, you know.
Well, but those guys are a little bit out of date too. That's the problem with expat communities.
I don't know.
Just like me, 30 years in Asia, I'm out of date of America.
Yeah.
Those guys, they get out of date. Expat communities, they get out of date. Oh yeah, they remember the old days. And well, no, I'll say one other thing. They also want to justify their actions. So, for example, let's say I left America when American cars were just total shit, right? I mean, they were just a joke. And I love Japanese cars, right? Back then, I was just like, I was total Japan. And
did you eat this yet?
not yet. Go ahead and eat. So then when I went to Japan, I was like,
what do you think about Death March?
I used to always say, like, fucking American cars are so stupid. American car companies suck. I had Coke, all those fucking idiots. That's the way I talked back then. I was really anti-American cars. I thought they were shit, and I still think they were shit then. But
I don't think
Japan
so.
was on its way up. But let me just say, this is what I'm telling you is this. I had this fixed idea. But as I was in Japan and China, American car companies rose. And it was hard for me to admit that things had changed. And my pride of, I made my decision. I went expated overseas. You know what I mean? Like I risked my whole future in life. I put all the chips on number 37, right? And now things have changed. It's not easy to admit that. The way that I did it, the way I wiggled out of that one, is I love Tesla. So when Tesla came along, I had to admit it was an American company, American car company. And I was like, I love Tesla, right? I love the way they think. I love the way they're doing things. I love the way, and not as a fan, I love the technology, the things that they're making and doing, right? So those moves they were making, just like Japan used to make, you know, the just-in-time manufacturing and all those moves, those things impressed me. So I swallowed my pride, and now American car companies are basically the best in the world right now. Germans, no fucking way. Japanese, no way anymore. They're so far behind the time, making hydrogen cars. They are lost in Japanese car companies. And I think Japan is gonna lose the car industry. And I personally think that will be the end of Japan, like as an industry. Because there's so many, as an industrial power. When Japan loses the car companies, they're going to lose the gazillion small parts makers. And you're going to see the giant sucking sound out of Japan. And Japanese engineers going overseas just like Indians were. And
then watch out for another Pearl Harbor then. Careful. Keep an eye on those keep an eye on those guys.
Dave's got a good sense here. Okay, yeah. No, but true, right? It's possible, right? When people get poor, people get desperate. People get angry. Now, I personally do not think that at all. I think what's at Japan is like almost like so passive, it's incredible. Like they should be less passive. To me, they should stand up more, Japanese. I think they should make their own nuclear bombs, tell everybody to fuck off, and just basically build a powerful defense.
Japan could build a nuclear bomb in like 5 seconds.
And they should. I think they should have their own bombs. I think they should have a super powerful defense. Because they're next to powerful countries. They're in the flashpoint. They're in,
As you can tell, I'm feeling better because I ate now. I'm starting to wake up a little bit.
All right, baby. We're going to go on a death march today. So the nationalism and the kind of, let's go on to India a little bit more. Oh, yeah. Some key things you need to know. So the Modi government right now is kind of turbocharging India's rise. Okay, the Indian people, the small local officials that Dave talked about that are like basically corrupt, Modi is pulling them into the modern era. Now, whether he can do it or not, and whether it's going to work, it looks like it's working, but it's going to be a rough ride. But what he's doing is he's inking deals with countries like crazy. And every country right now is going to India with their hat in their hand. And they're like, we want to be partners with you. People are on their hands and knees to make a deal with India right now. Go look in the news. Every country is showing up. Japan, America, Australia. They're all going to India. And the reason why is because They see India as a potential large labor market, as a source of stability in the world. They see India as a rising power. They see the Modi government as open for business and powerful enough that he can push through some reforms and say, look, we're going to make an Apple factory, and this factory is not going to be subject to the usual bullshit of factories are subject to. And the local officials will say, why this? And he's going to say, nope, fuck off. This is a separate industrial park. You guys don't control this one. And I think that's what he's doing. I think that's what people are basically taking the Chinese idea of the high-tech park, they used to call it, where you had like a high-tech park that was only for export in China. Foreign companies would be invited to go there. You would be basically surrounded by a security fence, and you would make products, and those products went straight on a truck, and the truck could not go into China. It had to go on one freeway, 8 lanes, straight to the dock. There was no turnoffs. And the dock, it would go on a box, and it would get sent overseas. That's the way China built their machine. With these high-tech parks, they were designed by the central government, and they didn't want the foreign companies to compete in the Chinese market. They wanted the foreign companies to use the Chinese labor and then to get the fuck out of China. Get out, right? And that's what they did, and they did it successfully. And I think we're going to see India, the Modi government, and the companies themselves saying, hey, look, we don't want to come in and make a lot of waves. We just want to make a lot of money, and we're happy to train all your guys. We're happy to help build infrastructure. We're happy to help you reform. And if you don't want us to sell in India, we're okay with that. The foreign companies are ready to play ball. The Indian government is ready to play ball. And the timing is perfect because a lot of manufacturing is moving out of China. A lot of supply chains are like suddenly deciding that they don't feel comfortable in China. And because of that, this is what's really driving the whole thing, is India's right there. And India is saying, hey, look, come here. Now, Vietnam is another one. Vietnam has already maybe even getting near reaching capacity because they've taken so many, I would say as a rule, Japanese companies went to Vietnam. And because it was easy, they could load all their big machines onto a truck and drive across the border, drive down from China. And they were able to easily relocate factories. And I have a friend, he that's his business, is basically consulting Japanese companies who are moving from China to Vietnam. And that's a huge trend. That's been going on for a long time. The Abe government had a $2 billion fund set up to pay companies to move out of China. So not only do they want to move, they get money in Japan to do that. And also, we are seeing, it isn't even about China really. It's more about risk. Okay, so companies are now realizing, okay, we outsourced, it was good, we made a lot of money, but then we realized that if you have too much in one place, there's too much risk. So companies are not going to do the same thing with India. They're not going to go and move everything to India. They're going to say, okay, I'll put some in India, I'll put some in Vietnam, I'll put some in China, I'll put some in America. They're going to put some in Africa, and they're going to separate. They're going to do a more sophisticated supply chain. Then in China, it was a simple supply chain. Move everything to China. They got everything you need. Everything's going to be done, finished product, or at least a put together product, all together, done, shipped out of China. That era is not going to be replaced. India will not do exactly what China did. I think India is going to be a very different beast. Like I said, the people are very different. Their international understanding is different. I think that also the values are similar. Indian values, the idea of truth is very similar in India as it is in Britain. And let's face it, America is basically Britain, right? And so is Canada, so is Australia. So I'm just going to use Britain as an example. So the British legal system is what India adopted, and they like it, and they kept it, and they never got rid of it. And it's probably been their strong point. It's been one of the things that keeps India, I guess, structured, maybe is a good word. Like Dave said, there is a lot of corruption, but that doesn't kill the basic legal system. It's still there. You have to watch your P's and Q's in India. You can't bribe your way out of everything. It's just not possible. They have a legal system, and you better respect it. So I would say that what we are seeing is a very complex situation. First, I'll say people are not abandoning China, okay? What they're doing is they're saying, I'm going to move some out of China. I'm going to hedge my bets. I'm going to build a global supply chain that is more sophisticated and not dependent on one place. A. B, we see political changes. Those are faster. So the agreements that Modi's making with all these other governments, the recent one was with Japan, these things are serious. The Maldives did an agreement. I mean, there's like Singapore. People are making agreements with China, with India, like just like this. Everybody's just waiting in line. Every politician, it's like, let's go to India, let's make a deal. That's what's going on right now. And that's going to be interesting to watch. That's kind of a keep your eye on this one, because Modi's making some deals. And if the Modi government, if India can fulfill these deals, then we're going to be talking about a whole different landscape in another 6 months. But let's see what happens with the success of these deals. India has, I would say, the ball's in India's court right now. And like I said, it's a very complex ball. It's not a simple ball. It's not India's great, China's no good. It's not that. China is a very advanced country, very creative country, a lot of innovation, a lot of patents. I know a lot of patents are copies, but there's a lot of patents coming out of China. Make no mistake, China is a force. And don't get into the meme, like the soup of the day, soup du jour is that China's this and India's that. I'm bringing you the most complex, thorough analysis that I can so that you can understand the environment and make better decisions and understand more things. You know, India is rising, no doubt about it. China is definitely no longer the dragon. You know, it's not the dragon. And it remains to be seen what China will eventually become. A lot of things could happen in China. They could have political change, and that could change everything back to China. There could be something in China where there was a massive shift in power where a whole different group got in charge and started to reverse a lot of the things that caused the exodus to happen in the first place. So never count out a winner. And China was a winner for a long time. So just like a boxer, right? He's still got that punch. You got to watch out. That punch is still there. Even if the up-and-comer is going there, that old guy just bam, you know, he knows what he's doing. He's experienced, right? China's like that. And the manufacturing expertise, understanding the level of training, the level of knowledge, understanding the skill, just things like the ability to make a mold, which is what you use to make products, right? You make a mold first, and that costs a lot of money, and like $50,000 to make a mold, and then you use that to mass produce the product, right? You just pour the stuff in there, plastic, metal, whatever, and then the things pump out. The ability to create things, to mine, to mill things. So to make like an iPhone, they use one piece of metal and then they mill it. They mill it down to a frame. They take the other stuff, they melt it down, they mill another frame. And that skill is something Americans lost. That's why if a World War III happened right now, my money would be on China simply because of their manufacturing ability. America won the war. A lot of the reason was because they had it was the world's manufacturing, it was the world's factory at the time. Now China's the world's factory. When it comes to fucking war, the factory wins. The bravery of running over the hill doesn't win. It's the fucking tanks. It's the tires. It's the, you know what I mean? It's the chains. It's the oil. It's the production. It's the ability, the supply chain that brings things, that brings things to the soldiers, right? It's that kind of stuff is what wins. It's not high tech stuff. It's the food goes to the people at the right time. The water's there. The roads are built. The trucks come in. That is a very, never discount these type of things. And China's a very serious force when it comes to military. So military is a totally different thing. We're just talking about the basically manufacturing, economy, and that kind of stuff. China, the PLA is on its way up. The PLA is coming out with new products, new things all the time. They're working on a 6th generation. The Chinese military is no joke. In fact, you don't want to get into war with China, basically. It's very unpredictable. The Chinese are very smart. The military is very, I would say, complex. There is a lot of corruption, but the military is another topic for another day. But I just want to say that the PLA is no joke. It's a very serious military. Do not fuck with the Chinese military randomly without thinking very clearly about what you're doing, because there is even the Ladakh thing was not a clash of militaries. It was just like a couple people up at a fucking cabin, basically, right? It wasn't a clash of militaries. You have not seen a clash. You have not seen a real clash of the modern PLA with another country yet. So it's kind of a lot of unknowns. But I think you're going to be, if you like military stuff, you're going to be very impressed with what the PLA is capable of doing.
What about Vietnam?
They fought Vietnam in '79 when the Americans moved out. But that was a totally different PLA than today.
Okay.
They didn't have any high-tech weapons. They didn't have any. They were just like a big, untrained land army of country guys.
Right.
Now you have a totally different situation. And so there's your pluses and minuses. There's your risks. There's your basic. The nugget is, I would say that India is unique. India is its time. It's like India's time, I would have to say. Now, whether they can use that, that's another question, but it's India's time, guys. And it's exciting. The world is changing. I love change. I love to watch these complex things roll out. And I want to hear what you guys think. I think I would not mind living in India again. I was in India for half a year. I like India. I love Indian food. I think Indian women are absolutely beautiful. Like, they're absolutely gorgeous. If you really know Indian women,
right,
they're like a combination of white chicks and Asian chicks. Like small waists and big jugs. They have that.
Personally, I'd rather set myself on fire than live in India again.
Okay.
Maybe someday.
Fair enough. And that's the thing. India, this is the one thing people always say about India, is that India is either love it or hate it. That's what they often say. And I loved it. I loved everything about India. I had a great time. I took a camel safari near Pakistan. I took my motorcycle all over the country. I met I hung out with Indian friends all the time. When I was in Chennai, I had like 30 or 40 main Indian guys. We were all hanging out and we were doing stuff all together. It was awesome. We're still in touch today. We're still friends. And that was, 21 years ago. But I have very good memories of India. The only sad thing is I didn't buy a house. I was going to buy a house in the kind of the Beverly Hills area of Chennai.
You can't buy it.
My friend lived there. It was super cheap.
You can't legally buy a house in India.
I could have done it through a company. No, my friend could have helped me.
I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. Well, the prices went up, that's for sure. Maybe I couldn't have bought it. My friend said I could, but maybe I couldn't have. Who knows? It was land. It was definitely land. It would have had to be some kind of complicated contract.
Right.
Or maybe like company ownership structure. Right. But I think I maybe could have done it, maybe with some risks. But anyway, my friend is a wealthy family. He would have helped me, and we're still friends today. So I don't think he would have taken the house from me. So I do regret that a little bit, because that house would have been one of the best investments in the history of the planet, because they were worth nothing then. And I know now that neighborhood now, $10 million. Like, that neighborhood is like gold. It's where all the wealthy Indians in Madras live. All the guys who have diamond companies, the ones who have sons racing cars in London, the guys with the iron ore companies, that's where they have their houses. And it's like, It's a beautiful neighborhood. And I loved it. And I was looking at houses there. Like, I was going to my friend's house all the time, and I was like, wow, this is a cool neighborhood. Like, fuck, I love this place, He's like, you should buy a house here, because they don't cost anything. My mom's told me the neighbors were selling. I was like, oh, man. And then I was like busy thinking about traveling and Japan and everything. And I wasn't in the, let's invest money in India mode. I wish I would have been. So anyway, there's going to be opportunities here for you, whether it's to travel to India, to do business in India, to buy Indian stocks. I think there's a lot to be gained from watching Indian content because you get the perspective. I think Indians are not politically correct, and they say things the way they think they say it. And I like that.
They're lovely people. Lovely people.
I made some very good friends. But it was funny because I was mainly hanging out with dudes because girls didn't leave the house at that time.
They still don't.
It was hard to meet girls.
Hard to meet girls there, which is
Right.
why I'd rather set myself on fire than live there. If you need to know, it's like almost impossible.
Right.
It's possible, but it's very difficult.
There was 2 places to meet him when I was there. One was there was one coffee shop in Madras, Chennai, and it was like a fake Starbucks copy, and that was the place you could talk to girls. The only place. Inside that coffee shop was totally cool, and there was kind of like the Bollywood people. My friend was dating one of the MTV VJs. In the parties they had, that was totally cool. You could meet girls there. But there was like the upper crust of India, which nothing wrong with dating an upper crust girl, right? So there was pluses and minuses. But as far as like meeting like a local country girl, that you're going to lift up from poverty, that just did not happen. The Dalits and stuff, you're not going to be dating any of these chicks. You might get killed, So that's true. That's true. Especially in small towns. Anyway, I hope that's interesting. I hope that fired your imagination a bit. Thanks for listening.